Hi, my name's Luke Hackett. I'm an associate at Baker McKenzie. I went to university at Queen's University in Belfast, and then I moved over here to begin my training contract. With the training contract, we got to sample sort of distinct areas of law. So we had a contentious seat, a corporate seat, maybe more a conventionally advisory seat. And when I went to corporate, I realized that with corporate and corporate finance in particular, you got to do transactional work, which is sort of the more fast-paced, maybe an M&A deal, or in the capital markets team, which corporate finance, that's the sort of work they also do. You could have an IPO where a company wants to list on the London Stock Exchange, or maybe a company that's already listed wants to raise more money or issue debt, and that's the sort of work they do there. But I also realized there's a massive advisory angle to the corporate finance team, and that is helping companies tell their story. So when a company's on the London Stock Exchange, every year they need to issue an annual report. They need to say what they're doing in terms of climate change, how they're addressing climate risks, how that's having a positive impact on their shareholders, also what they're doing in terms of diversity. How are they ensuring that the board has equal representation from all genders? How are they ensuring that the talent pipeline is diverse? And I just thought this whole advisory aspect was really interesting and not what I expected to get from a seat which even had corporate in the name. I thought it would be a lot more churn documents, but that wasn't how it was. So when I was picking the seat, I was just like, yeah, I think this seat has the right balance. I also thought the pace was good, because when I was at university or going through school, I realized that I worked best when I was under a bit of pressure and things were busy. That's when I was most productive and got the best out of myself. So I thought corporate finance was a good fit. Now that I'm qualified, I think the key difference with the work you do is the ownership you have over that. So as a trainee, the idea is to experience as much work as you can and get a taste for as much as you can, and then that will help you make an informed decision at the end. Once you're an associate and you're working in a team, you really want to start taking ownership and really get into the details of a project, be on the project from start to finish, and yeah, own your work streams, basically. So you get to really delve into some of the more technical legal aspects of the deal, which by virtue of your time in a team as a trainee, you just won't have an opportunity to do. So I like that part of it. I also like now the way I can see small discrete tasks in the bigger context of the transaction. So as a trainee, you might get one or two discrete tasks here and there, but you might miss out on the context. Whereas when you're an associate, you're on the client calls, you're on the internal calls where you're strategizing maybe how to implement a transaction, and you just have a much better understanding for what's going on. At the moment, we've got quite a few private M&A deals, public M&A deals. IPOs have been a bit less common, and that's by virtue of the economy generally, the impact of COVID, first of all, which created a lot of market uncertainty, and then following that, the impact of the war. So for various reasons, there was a slowdown in capital market activity, but things are starting to pick up again. We're still busy, and yet we've got both public M&A, private M&A. There are some IPOs knocking around as well, business reorganizations. So with sort of an uncertain market, a lot of companies decided, okay, now's the time to really streamline our operations and make sure that we're operating in the most efficient way. And we can also help companies do that with corporate restructuring projects. And yeah, the advisory work that I mentioned never really stops, because once a company's on the stock exchange, they're always thinking about the next best way to achieve their strategies and hit their goals. So there's always that advisory element as well. The highlight of my career to date, well, I think when you close any major deal, that's a big highlight. There's usually a dinner or two to celebrate, and after the team working really intensely for a couple of weeks in particular, as you're approaching signing or closing, everyone's really swamped and in the trenches together. Then there's usually a celebration at the end, and it's a nice sense of achievement, particularly then if you pick up City AM or the Financial Times and you can see the project you are working on is reported in one of these papers. It kind of puts it into perspective just how important the deals are that you're working on. And then with clients as well, if you build a good relationship, sometimes there are nice perks. I know probably the most surreal one was we did a small restructuring for a client who was in the film industry, and they invited the partner and his wife, but his wife had to cancel last minute, so I got to go with him to a movie premiere in Leicester Square. So we got to walk down the red carpet, but of course that was before anyone important arrived, but that was a bit surreal. That was sort of a highlight. I think to be a top solicitor in this area of law, contrary to popular belief, it's actually not all about the black letter law and old historical case law. It's actually more so based on, well, particularly in corporate finance, based on codes, guidance, and most interestingly, market practice. So what are other companies doing? How are people addressing the risks that they face today? And then trying to get one step ahead of the curve. So to be on top of that and to proactively be ready to face sort of legal issues head on, and bearing in mind that the law is changing every day. It's important to be commercially aware and to be up to speed with current affairs, and just to have a general awareness of what companies are doing and how people are tackling these problems. Pragmatism, good work ethic, be able to read sometimes complicated pages of information, digest that, and then produce something for a client which they can very easily see the high-level points that they need to be aware of, and maybe some advice. So next steps, what do they need to do? So it's always about reading, digesting, and producing something concise that somebody can act on. Also having an understanding for the sort of client you're working with. So when you're working with someone in the business, they are getting 100 emails about 100 different things, and they've reached out to you to provide some concise legal advice. The email needs to be short. That's what clients often say. Just give me the key takeaways and that's what I need to know. I think any sector of law or anybody contemplating a career in law, it's important to appreciate that the law can open up many doors. The skill set that you would develop with a career at a law firm or a law firm in the city is going to be really adaptable, and you can really use the skills that you develop to go into almost any career. So I think anyone contemplating a career in law should go for it, because it's a really sound base, even if you later discover the law's not for me. One thing I wish I'd known about being a solicitor before I started is naively probably that the law changed so much, so it's always developing, and it's quite modern. It's not just the law that was written in the history books. So I guess I just had very little appreciation for how modern and how much the law changed month to month, and that was going to be as important, and keeping on top of that was going to be as important as it was. And the law's current. It's constantly being modified to address trends and current risks. Think of sanction laws, for example. Like, those are changing. They've changed so much in the last couple of months. So it's things like that I just didn't really appreciate. And I also probably naively associated a career in law with being a high street solicitor or a criminal lawyer or going to jail or going to court. And day to day, that's not something that a corporate lawyer would do. Sometimes we do go to court, but that would be the business courts. But it's very rare for a corporate lawyer to end up in court unless you've done something drastically wrong.